And Tyler Lessard is the VP of Marketing for Vidyard. And he's a spectacular thought leader in this space. Many of us got deep in this over the last year and change. Tyler's been super deep in this space for 6 years. He's also been recognized. So he's got a fantastic book, which I've recently read, called The Visual Sale with his buddy Marcus Sheridan. But he was recognized as one of Marketo's top 50 fearless marketers. Those of you who don't understand, huge, big league. So spectacular credentials there. He's also been recognized by the Demand Generation Report as one of the top buyer-focused B2B marketers. Before we got him for today, by the way, I went and watched 10 of his videos on YouTube. They're fantastic. I also feel like I really know him because I watched those videos. Another one of the strengths of videos. But let's see if we can find Tyler here and get him engaged. Mr. Lessard, I hope I didn't set the bar too high for you there.
Hey, Mark. No, that was, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. It is absolutely great to be here. And I am so excited to dive into this topic of virtual selling overall, and specifically these creative new ways that sellers are using video, not just to react to this new world, but to really change the way that they're selling. It gets me fired up and really excited to dive into that.
Oh, fantastic. So Tyler, I'll tell you a couple of things that really jumped out to me when we were taking a peek at some of the things you've spoken about. You know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, we might have been in the funnel talking about leveraging video, even then, for initiating or creating sales cycles. And one of the things that you've really enlightened me to over the last period of time is it can help our sales process at every stage of that playbook, starting sales cycles, continuing them, closing them, and then actually on the customer support, customer success side of things as well. Tell me a little bit about that.
It's been really fascinating over the last few years to see this evolve in this way, Mark. And, you know, I'll set the stage with everybody to kind of visualize what are we talking about when we think about using video in the sales process, because many of us are used to common ideas like having a Zoom call or having a Teams call or whatever it happens to be. When you've booked that meeting, you want to get them on camera, you want to do a live demo. Yeah, that's a great use case for video, live video as part of the sales process. But most sellers underestimate the opportunity and the potential with recorded custom videos that can be used at all these other points throughout the sales process. Frankly, whenever you need to deliver an important message, whenever you want to share an idea, respond to a question, show rather than just tell something, it's easier than ever to hit the record button, hop on a webcam recording or hop on a screen share recording and deliver your message, or to show them something that's of interest or of value. And for the most part, sellers just haven't been thinking in this way. The tools haven't been there to do it. If I were to say to an average salesperson, hey, why don't you go off and record a quick video and send it to your prospect, right? They would be lost. They would like be holding up their phone. They'd be uploading it to YouTube. If they're a younger one, maybe they're putting it on TikTok. Who knows where it's going, right? But the reality is today, the tools are turnkey, simple, and free to hit record a video and send it out via email or LinkedIn directly to a prospect or customer. And what's interesting, Mark, as we think about this new dynamic is it just now becomes a way we can communicate our message. And it's not necessarily just oh, that's how I do a demo or that's how I prospect. It's, geez, you know, anytime I'm trying to reach out to a customer, I can put my face in front of them by recording a quick video and sharing it. And that's really, really powerful in today's digital divide.
Thanks, Tyler. And you know, it's so powerful because, you know, when we're coaching these amazing salespeople, they're fantastic. That's why they're so good in person.
Right.
By the way, that's because they're sincere, they're empathetic, they're authentic. They kind of sell to you the way they'd like to buy, which it's wow, it's not like rocket science here, right? It's, hey, I'd like to treat somebody else the way I'd like to be treated. But what really opened my mind when I started doing a deeper dive, you know, a little while back with Vidyard is the capabilities of leveraging that along every stage of the process. And I love this idea. You've got a great example where an account-based salesperson who did large enterprise deals, which is kind of near and dear to my heart for the recent past, but how they could grow their relationships within a customer base with people they've never met. And it's the same way I kind of felt like I knew you today because I've watched 10 videos over the last 3 days. These people feel like they know this individual, and based on his credit, he's the kind of person you want to get to know. So his credibility just grew in the eyes of this client or prospect.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you might be alluding to a rep that I've been sharing a story recently named Thomas Buchanan. And I actually, if you don't mind, I happen to, this wasn't an intended segue, but folks, I have a little bit of content about Thomas here in how he has been using video to sell. And I'm just going to quickly share this story because it was actually really inspiring to me as well to hear from this seller who is working large enterprise deals, long-term sales cycles, who had this interesting moment where he realized these short videos he's sending is enabling him to build these relationships and almost walk the halls in his accounts when he can't be there in person. And you can see here up on the screen, hopefully it comes through to some degree. So Thomas is an account executive at a company called Modus. And on the side here, you can see this side, a few different examples of the kinds of videos that he records and sends through to his prospects and customers using a tool like Vidyard. And there's other tools out there as well. But he does this in a way that is literally just as easy as typing and sending an email. And what you'll see here is, one example up on the top here, right up over here is early on in the prospecting stage of an opportunity. He's sending short videos that are meant to stand out, to create a sense of curiosity, and to build early rapport with the prospect, right? Like that's the most important thing when they don't know you yet is I got to get them to engage. And the same old emails, the same old phone calls aren't working. So he'll record a video. And in this case, he has a sign he's holding up that says, "Hey, Jim," because he's sending that video to somebody named Jim. And in the email, when it comes through, the thumbnail image for that video shows up and Jim immediately sees a few things, right? Just from that thumbnail image. Well, this is a real person, first and foremost, that's step one. Step two, I can clearly see that he made this video for me because it's got my name in it, right? That's why he does that. It's a bit of a psychological trick to get you to lean into the messaging. And he also, even from that thumbnail image, just looks authentic, right? Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't, like he looks like somebody that, okay, this looks interesting. So you click on that video and it launches a web page where that video plays. And Thomas says something like, "Hey, Jim, it's Thomas at Modus here. I've been working with da-da-da-da-da," whatever his typical conversation piece is, right? But what happens here is instead of just the bullet points in an email, it's a 60-second video where he gets to put his personality out there. He gets to have that quick conversation. He gets to show that he's passionate about this stuff. And he gets to deliver it in a way where you get to see him and quickly meet him. And then there's all these other examples, Mark, where he now drips these short videos throughout his sales process. And he's using this as a way to intentionally build this relationship over time and saying, "Hey, I'm not just going to wait until a video call. I'm going to share these short videos so they get to keep seeing my face, hearing my voice, and looking at me as a trusted advisor, whether or not I can be there in person."
We're getting these nice chats coming in, and thank you folks on the webinar here saying brilliant. I just love this because it humanizes this sales process. For many of us, by the way, this is our chosen life. There's a reason professional selling is so tough now. And frankly, there was a good 20, 30 years ago where sellers knew only about themselves. And there's a reason we're the punchline on The Simpsons. So it's changing, but this is where we get to actually be professional, show capability, but you talked about show and tell.
Yeah.
So not just, and I think it's so important because it's accretive in my view. That's why these engagement processes work. You start to build an impression, and maybe even if the client doesn't respond with that first email, frankly, when we do it, a lot of clients or prospects respond and say, "Man, that was cool." Like even the technology, they respond and go, "That's kind of unique." But even if they don't, I think it's accretive. So you reach out with a couple of these, they feel like they know you. And then maybe that's in combination with a couple of calls you make. And instead of putting you to voicemail, they take the call. And our team hears that quite a bit, Tyler, where they go, "Hey, I feel like they pick up the phone and go, I feel like I know you."
Yeah.
You've kind of broken through that wall and a little bit of the defensiveness is down. And now it's up to us to kind of earn the right to get to the next stage of that conversation if we can add value.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And if you think about that early stage of the sales process, these impressions of these videos create brand imprints for you, right? If they're opening up that email, and I've got a whole slew of tips on how to make sure they actually open the thing first, which is really important. But once they do, again, they're seeing your face. Hopefully they're clicking through to the video. But even if they don't, right, they're associating you as a real person. The last thing that happens in your mind, in addition to knowing real person, high expectation of value, made this for me, is that it also shows that you're willing to put in the effort. And therefore, there's a higher expectation, again, of value. And I know, as somebody who gets sold to all the time, Mark, my inbox is a disaster. It's a disaster. It is filled with unopened emails from sales reps, sorry, folks, that are the same old stuff. They're the same old copy paste template. And I can sniff it out in like a microsecond how much effort you really put into this. And my expectation of value is a direct mirror of that. The less effort you put in, the less value I expect from you. But if I see somebody that made me a video, and didn't just make me a video, but clearly showed in that video how it is that they did some homework. Maybe they sent me a video, not of them on a webcam, but a screen share video where my LinkedIn profile is up on the screen behind them and their camera's on in the corner. And they go, "Hey, Tyler, I was on your LinkedIn profile and I noticed that you're the VP marketing, and I'm actually working with a few other marketing VPs who all have the same problem, right? Diminishing response rates to their campaigns, whatever the problem is, right? And I would actually, and then the conversation goes from there. And even me seeing a video with them on my LinkedIn profile immediately clicks to me. I'm like, okay, there's something interesting here. There's some value to be had. So again, these are all little things that really stack up to higher value. They may respond to that, or to your point, they may respond 2 days later, 2 weeks later, or 2 months later, when the time is right, or when you drop in that next phone call or send that next message.
Well, you get into the synchronous versus asynchronous, and the folks on our webinars already know I'm no smart guy. So it's like immediate or real time. I don't want to use fancy words so they think I'm smart. But the truth of it is, these days, everybody's so busy, they actually may choose a later date and time to actually watch what you've sent. That kind of email is going to get opened. And I love this idea too, with this, some of these asynchronous communication channels become synchronous.
Yeah.
With current clients, for example, our team will text if the current client prefers that.
Yep.
But that's asynchronous, we'll send a message. And then it can become synchronous because they text us back at 9 o'clock at night. Some of our guys people are still doing that. Now they're in a real conversation. But you mentioned one thing, Tyler, which I thought was neat. You said, hey, the recipient feels like you've done some work.
Yeah.
And I think I know you know this, but the Robert Cialdini, the influence, the theory of reciprocation is a massive driver of behavior.
Yeah.
We almost can't help ourselves. You did some research on me, you did some work. I feel compelled to let you earn the next stage of the process. And these things really matter. Our folks too will often say, now that they do it so often with the Chrome plugin, and most of the people on this webinar were sent a link to the Chrome plugin. Folks, it couldn't be easier to download the free version of this. It's actually in some ways faster to get a video email out in some cases.
Yeah.
So we use them a lot, frankly, internally. I'm doing a lot of apologizing for making mistakes within our company. I use video, it's more compelling. Sorry, right. I missed this one. Sorry, my mistake on this. But it gets that message across in a more sincere and authentic way.
Yeah. Well, and you go back to, these ideas and this story of my favorite sales rep, Thomas Buchanan, and there's lots of these other stories. Just that idea, Mark, of saying, if there is, an important message I need to deliver, if there's something I need to show, if there's something I need to get across, would it be more impactful to record and share a short video?
Yeah.
And even getting into that state of, in your mindset when you're selling and going, you're about to send an email, or you're thinking about a message to send, and having that pause moment and going, could this be better said through a video? Could this be better shown through a video? The answer isn't always yes, right? Like, I'm not saying here that every email you send to somebody should be a video, right? You're going to make some enemies pretty quickly if that's going to be what you do. But there are all these moments where it adds value, it adds personality,
Yeah.
it creates a relationship moment. And to your point, it actually, you become more of a trusted advisor because you are proactively answering questions, heading off potential objections.
Yeah.
One of the other things that Thomas does, I'll see if I can bring his screen back up here again, is there's a few different screen share style videos that you see here. And what he does with these is if a customer or a prospect expresses interest in a certain part of their solution, yes, he'll still have that planned call, where a live call where they'll do their full demo and whatnot, but he won't wait for that necessarily. What he'll do is he'll record a quick video walking through, right, in their terms, very clearly what that capability is and how he thinks it can help, right? So if he gets on a discovery call and they say, you know what, this part looks really interesting. And he's like, okay, well, we don't have time to hear. Let's book a demo in a couple of weeks. But you know what, I'll have something for you here in the next little bit. Just stay tuned. And then, the next day, he sends over a 3 to 4 minute video where he did a screen share and he just walked through it. And he said, hey, really great call yesterday. We're going to dive into this deeper on our live demo, but I quickly wanted to show you this one thing that I know is going to be important for you. Let me just show you quickly how it works. And he walks through it, sends that video over, and he's getting ahead of potential objections. He's even now making his next call more efficient because they've watched it. They come into the call more educated, and he can make better use of that live time. But the last thing that's really interesting about it, Mark, that he's found is these kinds of micro videos end up getting shared around much more frequently than other types of messages that he sends. And so he knows if he sends over a little 3-minute walkthrough of a certain capability, that his champion is likely to share it around with a couple other people who may be part of the decision team. And I talked to him about this, and something really interesting came to light was, he could just be sending over an off-the-shelf demo video that his marketing team produced for him, and it would deliver a lot of the same information. But his value in saying, you know what, I'm going to spend the 10 minutes, I'm going to do 2 takes on it, I'm going to nail my 3 to 4 minute walkthrough. When he sends it over, when that gets shared around, all those people in the decision-making team get to see him, they get to hear him, and they basically meet him. And he knows some of those people are never going to get on a Zoom call with him. And he's never going to be able to pop into the office and say hi and meet and greet. So this has now become his way of getting his face, his personality in front of more and more people. And it's this, idea of digitally walking the halls in an account. And these sorts of things you can do, again, very easily. And once you get into a rhythm of it, it can become this really effective way to communicate an idea, even to say thank you, to say sorry, to congratulate a milestone. All these micro moments, say it through a video, and they're points in the process where you build your personal brand, build your credibility, and create a more personal connection, even if you're not able to meet them in person.
Tyler, again, this is why we're so excited to have you. And gang, this is spectacular stuff. I got to call out, there's so many real nuggets here. One of the things you called out, Tyler, that's so important is you said, hey, maybe if I'm going to get into a real show, not just tell, maybe it's 2 takes. In the past, we used to, 3 years ago when we were doing things, we thought the video had to be perfect, and we had videographers all over the office. And, we had people putting powder on the top of my head so it didn't shine too much, and all these things, right?
Yeah.
Now it's authentic. It's so crazy easy to squeeze this thing out, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And sometimes you humanize it if there's a little blip or a minor mistake. Because when I'm in a face-to-face sales call, it's not perfect sometimes, and it's just human. We just move on. So I think sometimes, we've got lots of sales leaders on the webinar here today. All we all want is a high-performing sales team, but sometimes getting them to adopt some of these technologies is tricky. Yeah. It feels like it's got to be perfect. It feels like it's a big kind of event. Any thoughts for some of the gang on the line here of how do we actually get our salespeople to do this?
Yeah, well, it is a change. And that's the biggest challenge for most people, sellers and others, is that it's a change in behavior. It's a change in approach. And for some people, it's something that they may not have a great level of comfort with. But it's no different, frankly, from when you started cold calling, right? Like your first cold call felt like crap, Mark. Like, let's be honest. sucked.
It was.
You didn't feel good. You didn't make them feel good. You know, your second one also sucked. And eventually they became good, right? And you felt good about it. They felt good about it. And thank goodness you went through that process, because now you can cold call like a boss and it's part of your process. And doing things like video, it's like anything else. It takes practice. But what I would encourage folks to think about is the great thing that happened, you know, over the course of the last year is that we all got comfortable with this idea of being on camera. And now, you know, most of us are using it for video conferencing and Zoom calls and things like that. So we've gotten over this hump of camera, turning it on. Okay, I'm there. You know, but now this sort of opportunity presents itself to say, well, I can use this in different ways. Now that I've figured out how to use my camera, everybody's got one. I can start recording and sending these short videos in addition to just doing live video calls, which seems like a small leap, but for some people it is, right? Some people, they gravitate right to it and they're like, I got this, right? In my personal life, I make Instagram videos like here and there, I'm all in, and it's natural. But for a lot of people, it isn't. And so they start to have to learn about these differences of creating a video, because it is different from just being on a live call. You feel like it's a bit more like you're presenting to an audience. And so you do absolutely, you know, practice is essential to getting good at it. But there's a couple of other tips that I'd encourage you to think about as you're doing this yourself or as you're working with your teams. First of all is it goes such a long way to make video a first-class citizen in your communication strategy, and saying, look, if I'm going to hit the record button and I don't feel like I've got a good environment around me, like my lighting sucks and there's laundry on the bed and I don't feel good about it, you're not going to do it. And so it goes such a long way to just make sure, first and foremost, you've got an environment in your home office or your office that you feel good about hitting the record button and making a video. Lighting and audio are just as, if not more important than the camera quality. So you don't have to get a new camera. At some point, yeah, an upgrade, great. But if you had $50 to spend, I would spend it on a decent light that is front facing onto you and a decent microphone to make sure your audio is clear. Those two things will go a long way to making your videos feel really good. So get a decent environment, make sure you've got a basic setup where you feel good about making videos. The second thing is that you mentioned you don't have to be perfect. That's really, really important. The bar has come way down in terms of what people expect in videos, which is a good thing for all of us, but keep it short and be respectful of people's time, right? That is important. And how to do that is to plan your message ahead of time, right? Don't freestyle it. It never pays off. It never works well. Be thoughtful in advance of what are my key messages? What do I want to say here? And yeah, your first bunch are going to take you 3-5 takes to get it right until you get comfortable with it. But once you start to feel that messaging out, you become a one-take wonder. And so I think those are the two big things. Get an environment you feel good about. Don't worry about being perfect. Focus on being authentic, adding value, and creating a real connection with people.
You know what, we're going to summarize those, by the way. Those are great summary points. And I'll add in a little bit of, you know, some of what we like. We spend a lot of time on value proposition messaging at the start of our sales playbook with everybody. And it's not just for video, and it's not just for even demand generation calls, reaching out. We find that there's been this habit of this elevator pitch where for some reason we got all comfortable when somebody said, hey, tell me about in the funnel. Somebody spews out marketing bump that we took from 9 different marketing sources. And it becomes this 4 or 5 minute soliloquy. And because of our old pal, Herman Ebbinghaus and the forgetting curve, no one remembers anything. It becomes completely meaningless.
Yep.
And so it becomes this interesting exercise with a lot of companies, even at the senior levels, going, hey, we have to boil this thing down. What do you do? Why should I care about what you do? So what are you going to do for me? And what is unique and different about you? And we've been in business for 15 years. Doesn't make you unique and different, right? So everybody else will say the same thing. We have the best customer service. You're not unique and different. So when we get that messaging and work through it, what we used to do and still do, frankly, with clients and prospects stuff, we record them doing it. We literally rehearse and do sales role plays so they watch it back and see what it looks like. And it's an amazing thing I found with video. people cannot stand themselves on video. There's almost this psychological thing.
Yep.
Remember when you first heard your voice recorded, you thought, is that me? Is that what I sound like? The critical nature of most people who are reasonably humble, they not only do they think they're not good at it, they think they're the worst person ever. Yep. And then 4 or 5 times later, it's completely changed. So you just have to kind of go through that process a little bit. Then you start to get comfortable. And frankly, I'll throw myself in this boat. A lot of times I prefer doing video to typing out an email. I'll still put a summary on the email a little bit, but the video is actually faster. And I feel like I'm connecting with someone a little more. Because when I do them, I like to have their LinkedIn picture up.
Yeah.
So I'm staring at a face. I feel like I'm kind of humanizing the other end of it. Yeah. And so it's just more fun, you know, and it's crazy more effective.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I do hear that from a lot of sellers that they end up, you know, once they get comfortable with it, they say, this is actually faster than typing out an email. It's more fun, it's more personal, and it allows me to infuse my personality and my passion back into my messaging, which is something that, you know, sales reps in most cases, I think that's a big problem today, right? Like to me, most people who sell to me, do you know what they look like? They look like a text-based email and a caller ID. Like, I don't know, right? I don't feel them. I don't, you know, and I have no idea until a certain point, and most of them I'll never know who they are and whatnot. And so I think that's the really neat thing as well to be mindful of, and this idea of making it a consistent part of how you communicate, because even if you're just sending an email to a customer or a prospect to thank them for something or to congratulate them on a milestone, doing that through a video can allow you to lean into it a little bit, right? And I'll get on there and it'll be, hey, Mark, you know what? I am so happy to hear that in the funnel, just or, hey, I wanted to wish you a happy Groundhog Day, Mark. It's my favorite day of the year. Can't wait for spring to come sooner. Hope you're in the same boat. Look forward to talking about that sales proposal on Friday, right? Like just that allows me to put my energy out there, you know, to create that dynamic conversation that you can watch on your own time, and think about that compared to the email that says happy Groundhog Day, right?
Yes, night and day. I love all of this. You know what, while you were talking about that, Tyler, I think it seems to me that when you're not doing this, if we're using just email or we're just using the telephone, they have to be part of it.
Yep.
Email and phone end up becoming equalizers.
Mm-hmm.
The things that make me unique or different can't come across sometimes as much. So I can't show what's unique and different about us. I can't show my energy and enthusiasm or my skill and capability or consultative approach. All of those things get equalized a little bit if I'm not leveraging this, because of that old Albert Mehrabian research, you know, in terms of how we communicate.
Yeah.
So little of it is actually verbal.
Right.
A lot of it's non-verbal. You know, and people always debate those stats a little bit, but we know that's why we want to be in person. We're way more compelling. Yeah. So these things are all magnificent. What other use cases? By the way, another thing I really loved, I got to call out, gang, we have folks who are on this webinar, technology companies, SaaS companies, manufacturing companies, services businesses. Believe it or not, a couple of professional services companies on today. Lawyers and consultants and accountants are on today. So everybody, I have yet to find any vertical where this isn't an opportunity to really stand out. And one of the use cases I loved when you were talking about tell not share, I can't remember whether it was Andy Paul or Donald Kennedy, which one you were on, but it was a rep who was talking about packaging folks. And he'd analyzed a package from the body shop and the supplies used to package the thing up. And what he did in his video was he laid out all of that tissue paper that was required to package that item. And then he said, if we did it, here's how much less we'd use. And he laid that out. And suddenly you looked at this thing and said, this guy just showed me where he might be able to add value. I got to take a call with this guy. I have to have a meeting with this guy. It was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those moments where it was like immediate proof and undeniable proof. It was the show, don't just tell. And in that example, the gentleman named Matt Hall, and he works at a company called Woodway UK. And he was one of our award winners. We do an annual video selling awards program to celebrate a lot of these great stories of reps that are going that extra mile. And for him, what was so compelling. You know, he was prospecting into the body shop, and he has a set of key accounts. And he was smart. He said, well, you know, what again would they be able to relate to? What makes it about them and shows them clearly that I can help solve a problem? And like you said, he ordered a package from them, and then he did a bit of an unboxing video and showed the existing packaging, and then he showed right beside it his packaging. But he did all of that in a minute. It was like 68 seconds, that video. And it was one of those moments where at the end of it, you go like, well, there's no question in my mind that this individual and this team can help me. It was very clear, and it got ahead of potential objections very easily. And it did so many things. To me, it was like, it took like 3 weeks off of the sales process in 60 seconds, because it did all of these things to create this immediate, sense and validation that this person can help. But it also, back to what we talked about earlier, Mark, it showed that he was in it to help them, right? It's like, he put in the effort here. Like, no other sales rep is ordering one of our packages and walking me through this. Like, that's a pretty valuable thing. But then people will worry. They'll say, well, I put all that effort in, and then they didn't watch my video. And like, I can't scale this. It's inefficient because I can't make all these videos. But I'll tell you what people like Matt do. One is, first of all, that becomes a repeatable process for him. Yeah. So, you know, you can be sure that he didn't just do that for the body shop. Now he's got a go-to process for many of his other prospects. And so it becomes a part of his habitual prospecting for his key accounts, not everybody. And so it makes it a little bit easier for him to do. But what you want to make sure of is you can get a little bit more creative with your subject line and your introductory copy to draw attention to it as a way to stand out even at that level. Because what we see people doing, especially when they're prospecting, is their email subject line will say something like "video for you, Mark," and then maybe a little teaser beyond it, or maybe it's just that. And I say in my email, Mark, blah 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 blah. I am so excited to show you this one thing because I'm absolutely convinced it can help. So I made you this 53-second video to introduce myself a bit and to show you something or other. And then my call to action, Mark, is going to be, can I send you another video to explain how we do this in a bit more detail, right? And so there's all these little things that go into it to saying, oh yeah, my email subject line could cut through the noise. Because let me ask all of you out there, when was the last time you got an email at work where somebody said, I made you a video or video for you? Like, right. Has it ever happened? Has it ever? And if you saw that, would you double take it? Would you be like, wait a minute, right? Like never, really. Thank you, Brandon. Yeah, absolutely. And so it is a total differentiator. And I think people underestimate that.
When we think about this need to stand out, right? If selling well really matters, and it's, sales is a profession, it's not a trade. So there really should be initial certification. We like to think we're kind of that certification. You go through our program, but then there's ongoing training. It's never a one-time thing. And before we're done, we're going to talk about ways that Vidyard and Tyler can help with that ongoing insight, because they've got some great resources. But we have to stand out. So I think it may have been through the visual sale, Tyler, where I thought I read that we get hit with 16,000 marketing messages a day. Today, I know for a fact from other sources, people circulate 3 billion emails a day. Think of that, 3 billion emails a day. You talked about being buried in email. Don't look at the chat feature when my team weighs in about how I can't get through my email. I mean, it's just shocking the amount of email we get. So this opportunity and need to stand out. I mean, I understand people check email. 27% of people check email in bed. I'm not one of those, by the way. But we have to be able to stand out. And this really is the strategy to stand out. And gang, when we start to think about, Tyler talked about, hey, we got to get good at Zoom meetings and Zoom messaging. According to McKinsey, we're in this boat for a while. Things are going to move in the right direction. Obviously, we're on a roll, but we're going to be rethinking a lot of things for the next 18 months. We actually have to get good at this. There was that period right when things got a little unique, even for just Zoom meetings. I think we had a little bit of leeway, maybe 60 days to get used to this, but now it is time, as Tyler said, we've got to get that environment set up. We've got to be comfortable doing a video meeting. We've got to understand those things about lighting and sound. is important so we don't get the cognitive stress. You know, that's why we're all so tired at the beginning of these unique and turbulent times, 3:34 in the afternoon. Your brain's been chasing cognitive stress 9 different ways, from looking at a Zoom call and people with dark message, you know, dark screens and complex backgrounds and all that kind of good stuff. So Tyler, one of the things we're going to do here, by the way, team, folks in the chat and May, could you please send your questions in now? Because in a few minutes, we're going to do kind of a lightning round with Tyler, and this stuff is spectacular. But as we lead up to that, Tyler, what are the things do the folks on this line need to know? We've got a lot of CEOs and sales leaders, and then salespeople. What are the things they need to know about this?
Well, I think building off your last point, Mark, is that this isn't just a fly-by-night novel trend by any means. We're, you know, no matter how things go in the future, you know, back to the old, you know,
Exactly.
new normal, it doesn't matter. The reality is your buyers want to buy, want to engage in different ways than they did 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago.
They do.
And this opportunity to be able to communicate with them in an asynchronous or on-demand way, to be able to send them information that they can read, that they can watch, that they can consume on their own time, to learn, to engage, is super important, in addition to our live meeting strategy. And I think now is the time to be able to get really behind it. And the great news is, again, video is becoming very easy to do. But you don't want to get left behind, right? The problem, you don't want to be sitting here a year from now going, oh, geez, I wish my reps had gotten better at video, because now we feel like we've missed the boat. So I think my biggest, you know, recommendation is to just, you know, start to get creative with this. Think about it, put it into motion. Don't overthink it, and you know, encourage your people to start trying these ideas out, and even work through it internally. The idea of, you know, sending videos internally so that people get a comfort level without always having to be customer facing.
Fantastic. By the way, thank you for touching on that. Just a reminder, I want to circle back to customer success people, you know, account management in a second, but a couple of thoughts, because I was so excited to have you on today. I did forget to mention, folks, getting some questions in the chat feature here. Whenever we reference a piece of research within the funnel, if you'd like it, my spectacular teammate May will send you that research. And Tyler just talked about things won't change back. Our clients and prospects want this. That same McKinsey research identified 76% of buyers actually want to interact with their sellers via video, not phone. So we think the phone's easier. We don't have to be dressed up. We don't have to do all those things. They actually want to be seeing you as well. And it's way better for you. You know, your ability to make an impression just skyrockets there. Any thoughts, Tyler, before we go to the questions here, and then we're going to wrap up with where people can get more information. Any thoughts around these client success teams? All of our clients have these fantastic account management teams, client success teams, program advisors. They have lots of different names, but to me, it's all these same concepts. Why not interact with them live instead of get off the phone, have a better conversation? You'll enjoy your day more. But thoughts or use cases on your end?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. These are folks that are interacting with customers on an ongoing basis, and, you know, frequently have to answer questions or share ideas. And if you can, first and foremost, keep your face front and center, that you stay memorable as an account rep, that you create that personal bond and connection consistently over their life cycle, then, you know, their chances of renewing, of upselling, of all of those things that you're trying to do in the long term, I tell you, they go way up, because that relationship is there, and they've seen that you're a trusted source that is willing to put in the work. But again, there's lots of ways in which you can be dripping these videos with your existing accounts, whether it's to show them how to do things, whether it's to visually answer a question, right? Like, oh, how do I do this? Or you can create, you know, record custom onboarding for them if you need to. All these different ways you can think about recording videos as a way to keep those relationships going, or to show rather than just tell how to accomplish different tasks, and your customer NPS is going to go way up.
Oh, spectacular. So a couple of questions, gang. I did want to bring up one huge point that we love. We want data. We want facts. We want methodologies in terms of this. One of the things I'm not sure we've called out specifically, but it's so critically important that we love, we do use a lot of video, and then we know when somebody's watched it. or how many times they've watched it. And that might tell us, so we get flagged, and so we get an identification. Well, Tyler watched the In the Funnel workshop on how we could train the Vidyard sales team. And it looks like he's watched it 3 times over the course of the last week. Now I'm going to just reach out for a conversation with Tyler. Let's train the Vidyard sales team. So the analytics are spectacular that we can leverage here, and very, very meaningful for having that conversation when your client or prospect's ready, because they've once again digitally put up their hand. So Tyler, I'm looking a little bit to the right here because I'm checking the chat feature. A couple of quick questions. Does including the link or the thumbnail actually impact receivability? Like, do I get flagged into junk or spam because of this?
Yeah, it's a common question, and the answer is when you use a tool like a Vidyard, again, what it's doing is it's dropping in the thumbnail image for the video along with a hyperlink that when clicked, it will immediately launch a page to watch it online. So it will follow the same firewall rules as any other email with an image or a link in it. So what's important is that it's not attaching a video file. It's also not including a YouTube link, which some companies will just straight up block.
Right.
So it will abide by the same rules as any other email with a link or an image in it. And so that's the mindset to have.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Then another question that we had was, the title of your book, thank you, The Visual Sale with Marcus Sheridan, The Visual Sale. Great read, by the way. So you want to get that one. Somebody said, there we go. I should say, I've got my copy here. I read them off here, but I should have had that visual. And is there any absolute no-nos? So somebody said, is there anything I should never include in an introductory video? Anything to be careful or cautious of?
I love that question. People don't ask it often enough. They always say, what should I do? Not what should I not do? There's a couple things. First of all, like any good sales prospecting, it's got to be about them, not about you. And with video, that holds true still. But it's actually sometimes harder to get into that mode because you're looking at yourself. You feel like, oh, I need to introduce myself and like tell you my life story and then show our product, right? But resist that urge. Like, yes, introduce yourself quickly. You got that first 5 seconds. Hey, it's Tyler from Vidyard here, da 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 da. The reason I'm reaching out is you. Now, how can I help you, right? So make it about them. Keep that focus. And the second thing is do be respectful of their time and, try to keep, if you're using it for cold prospecting, keep those videos around 45 to 60 seconds if possible. You can go up to 90 seconds, but you're pushing it. So try to aim for that 60 seconds or less for those prospecting videos, or you're just not going to hold their attention because they haven't yet raised their hand saying, I want to engage. So that's another big part of it is be respectful of their time and keep your messaging tight.
Great. So back on this email, just for a quick sec, we got a good question here. So some of the email stats I circulated, gang, was from the content marketing group. If I remember that correctly, we'll send the link. But of those 3 billion emails that go back and forth every day, 45% of them are spam. So interesting note. And we've got folks on today from Canada, Castle, you've got to be aware of. US, a little bit looser, and the UK, super tight. Yep. In terms of the laws against sending somebody an email when they haven't asked for it, you have to be very cautious and careful. What's the success, any stats, Tyler, on the success of video emails? Do we have any stats there that are helpful?
There are some actually. So there was a study done by a company called SalesLoft, who has a sales engagement platform that a lot of prospectors use. And they analyze their own first party data to look for trends in prospecting cadences. And what they found, they analyzed hundreds of millions of emails, cadences used throughout their system by all their users. And they found that on average, email cadences with videos had a 26% higher response rate than those email cadences without video.
Wow.
And they also found, as part of the study, they looked at videos at different points throughout the sales cadence. So if you're prospecting somebody, you may have a 30-day period where you're sending a series of messages. And they found that the most effective times to use video were between days 2 and 15 of that cadence. So I think the best practice is, upfront right away. Send them that first email to get into their inbox, do the LinkedIn request, leave that voicemail, and then your next follow-up, send that video and, use it early on in that process to try to get that attention. But that's what we've seen as the average, from proper data analysis. And then the benchmark for best in class, we consistently hear sales teams that are really crushing it, reporting a 3 to 4 times higher response rate when including videos in their programs, which is obviously that's best in class. But we've heard that consistently from some of those top performers. So I think that's the opportunity.
Oh, fantastic stat. So gang, I'm going to suggest to everybody out there, all, growth-oriented sales professionals, we're trying to continue to enhance that mindset and skill set and tool set, me included. And one of the things I'm really loving doing right now, I've got to be honest, it was such a pleasure to Tyler kind of researching for today, because I kept learning every time I was watching something you had on YouTube. So gang, consider creating connections. That's one of the programs that Tyler's got, creating connections. Any other sources we might advise folks, if we've triggered some interest here and they want to continue that journey of growing through the use of video in terms of the entire sales process and customer engagement process. Yeah. Any other resources, Tyler, we'd send out to them?
What I would suggest is if you head over to vidyard.com and you click on our learn and go to our blog, just vidyard.com/blog. Right at the top of the blog, we have 3 really hero guides. One is called, the ultimate guide to selling with video. I think it is something along those lines. One is a guide to video marketing, and one is a guide to video production. So I would start for all of you in sales with that ultimate guide to video in sales, and you're going to get a whole bunch of great examples, ideas, templates, frameworks. We have all sorts of free resources there for you to take advantage of. And I think that's a great place to go to kind of get it all in one nice spot.
So gang out there, the folks who've been on our webinars, we have a lot of our great people who join every week joining today. We're a sales training company. We do sales enablement consulting. We don't sell technology. I'm calling out, I love this approach. This is not a nice to have. It's a must have if you're going to compete and win right now. This is so unique and different. We have to be doing this right now. If you want more information, by the way, there's the great team over at Vidyard. Our teammate May will connect you with Rachel. Rachel and Will got a couple of great helpers who really are just so knowledgeable. Is there anything, Tyler, I should have asked you today, but I didn't do it?
I think we covered a lot of really great ground, and I'm glad we expanded the conversation into, customer success, even client support. These are all areas where people can be leveraging these videos in different ways. So I think we covered a lot of terrific ground here, Mark. I don't want to have people's heads completely explode. So I think we're good for where we landed.
I think we are too. Hey, listen, Tyler, very sincere thank you for joining us today. And so really, really appreciate all the value you added to our community. And it was great to spend an hour with you. Yeah. And we'll talk again for sure, but just thank you. And folks on the line, if there's anything you need from this discussion, hit us in the chat feature. We're going to come back to it, and our teammates will make sure we cover that off. But a very sincere thank you to everybody who spent this full hour with us, and most of you did. Thank you so much for joining today. We'll look forward to seeing you next week, but a real sincere thank you to Tyler Lessard and the Vidyard team. And by the way, we'll see all those videos.
That's right.
Bye, gang. Everybody have a great day, okay?
Thanks, everyone.